Alright guys, in the last lesson we learned about npm and we installed our first npm package, which is called Express. Now I'm going to introduce you to Express and exactly why we installed it. For that, I'm just going to uncomment everything we have right now and then I'm going to reference it later. So, how do we pull in the package that we installed? We're going to say constant express is going to be equal to require, and the name of the package is Express. And what this is going to do is, it's going to pull in the package that we installed from the node modules directory. Okay, so we have this available. Next, what is Express? It's basically a framework that is going to help us build applications faster. And it's very important that you learn Express because it's really popular. It's one of the most popular node packages out there, and most companies are going to be using Express to build their applications. Okay, so I'm going to show you exactly how easier it is to build applications when you're using Express. So now that we've put in Express, we are going to be doing exactly what we did right here with Express, and then you'd see how easy it is. So how do we create our server with Express? We have to say constant server or app is going to be equal to Express, and we'll call the function. And this is going to give us a brand new server, and Express is going to take care of all of the http.create server, request, response, all of that. It's going to take care of it behind the scenes. So that's really easy for us, right? You can either do this or you can do new Express depending on what syntax you love. Okay, so once we have our server, we can start our server using the listen function. Okay, so this is just like our server. Then we can say app.listen, or like we did, server.listen. Okay, so we say app.listen and then we pass in the port. So let's just say port 3000. And I didn't mention in the last lesson, but you can actually pass in a second function into this listen function as a parameter. And what this is going to do is, once the server starts and is listening, it's going to execute this function for us, a callback. Okay, so right here we're gonna say console.log and would say app listening on port 3000. Okay, so now that we have this few lines of code with Express, if we go ahead and start our application by saying node index.js, you can see that it logs this to our console saying app listening on port 3000. Okay, so let's visit our browser, and if we visit localhost 3000, you can see we have cannot get /, and this is because Express is telling us this route does not exist. Now, I just mentioned something, routes, right? Now, what we were doing was we were checking the request URL and we're saying if it's equal to about, then return this response. And we're saying if it's equal to contact, do this. This is a basic router, which means we are teaching our application how to respond to the different requests from the browser. How do we do that with Express? We are going to come right here immediately after creating our app, and before starting the server, we're going to say app.get, and this is going to define a type of route called a get route. And all of these routes right here have been get routes so far. And a get route is basically a route that responds to a get request from the browser. Okay, so once we refresh the page like this, the browser is actually making a get request to get some data from the server. Okay, now there are other types of requests, most popularly called the post. And the post is when the browser is trying to give information to the server or send data to the server. Okay, so now that we are doing a get, the first function, the first parameter that this get function takes in is the path, and the second parameter is a function that is going to be executed when the browser makes a request to this path. Okay, and into this function we still have our request and response objects from node, and here we can define exactly what we want. Okay, now Express has populated this request and response objects with more helpful functions to give us the possibility of responding better to requests from our browser. For example, the first we're gonna see is response.json, and this gives us the possibility of returning a JSON response to the browser, and therefore giving us the possibility to build APIs. So let's just go ahead and see an example of a JSON. We're just gonna say name is Cathy France. So if we stop our server and then start our server again and we refresh, great, look at that, we have JSON returned from our server, just like an API, right? So we are able to define routes, specific routes, and then define the response that our server is going to give when these routes are hit. Okay, so why don't we define one for the about? So we're gonna say app.get, and this is going to be slash about, and the next thing we're gonna do is pass in our function, which is the request and response parameters, and in here we're just gonna say response, and rather than using a JSON function, we're gonna use a send function right now, and this send is going to send anything we want to send. It can be a file or it can be JSON. So in this case, since we've not yet talked about how to send files, we are just gonna say response.send, and the name is going to be Cathy France. Okay, so that's the about. So if we come back right now and visit about, it says cannot get about. Sorry, that's because we have to stop our server and start again, so the latest changes are started. And then if I refresh, great, you can see that we still have a JSON response. Now, the reason why I did that was so that you learn the two amazing functions from Express. We have a send function and we have a JSON function. This is going to send specifically JSON, and this send function can send anything you want. You can send files, you can send views, you can send templates like we're going to see, but right now it's going to send JSON once we pass in an object to an array like this. Okay, so guys, that's your basic introduction to Express. You can see that we are already building our applications in a more structured way, and you're going to learn much more in the very next lesson. So I can't wait to see you there. Thank you so much. Wrap this up, and I'll catch you in the next lesson.